What's up everybody, I'm Nick Maye and this is the Weekly Fix, the show where we round up all the gaming and entertainment headlines you may have missed this week. We've got everything you need to know about that one Monster Hunter game where you totally should try to catch them all and then put them to work. I mean, somebody's got to mine those rocks, just not me. Possible litigation aside, we've also got a ton of other news to cover. The latest on the day before, Netflix raising their prices again, and a ton more from games and entertainment. It's a busy week and you've seen enough of me. Let's fire off that intro because it's news and time.
Palworld, the survival crafting monster collecting game lovingly referred to by its community as Pokémon with Guns, has already attracted millions of players since it hit PC and Xbox last week, and unsurprisingly its success and its resemblance to another monster collecting game has also attracted the attention of the Pokémon Company. In a statement on its official corporate website, the Pokémon Company states, quote, "We have received many inquiries regarding another company's game released in January 2024. We have not granted any permission for the use of Pokémon intellectual property or assets in that game. We intend to investigate and take appropriate measures to address any acts that infringe on intellectual property rights related to the Pokémon. We will continue to cherish and nurture each and every Pokémon and its world and work to bring the world together through Pokémon in the future." Now bear in mind this could be in response to the Pokémon mod for Palworld, a totally unofficial fan-made project that replaced the game's Pokémon-like creatures with actual Pokémon and replaced the human characters with Ash Ketchum and company. That mod was quickly taken down, but aside from that, there's no denying that even if Palworld's gameplay is nothing like Pokémon, some of the pals in it do bear a resemblance to some of the titular pocket monsters. So a lot of people are wondering, should Palworld's publisher Pocket Pair prepare for legal trouble and make it double? IGN spoke to a few legal experts on the matter. Peter Lewin, a video game lawyer at Wigan, pointed out that first and foremost, that depends on where the Pokémon Company or Nintendo or Game Freak tried to take legal action, since intellectual property law varies across the globe. For instance, in the States, the fair use defense is notoriously permissive. Generally, the three questions asked are: 1. Is the original work actually protected by copyright? 2. Has the alleged infringer copied a substantial part or the heart of the original work? And 3. Are there any available defenses, like fair use or parody, for example? Ideas aren't protected by copyright, which makes game mechanics especially hard to lay claim to. Lewin explained, one company can't stop another from making a game about catching and battling monsters. However, if a company copies important aspects of how exactly another company expresses that game concept, like characters, story beats, names, etc., that's where issues can arise. In this instance, the main focus seems to be on the PAL designs and 3D models, rather than the game concept as a whole. Sam Castry, a copyright lawyer and avid Pokemon player, says that all comes down to similarity, and even if some of the pals resemble certain Pokemon, that won't necessarily hold up in court. Castry explains, quote, "It's not enough to have a fire elemental dragon in the game. That dragon would need to closely mimic Charizard's design or be described with an amalgamation of the various Pokedex entries or something like that." So hypothetically, let's say one of Pokemon's rights holders decides to take Palworld to court. What are Pocket Pair's courses of action? Castry speculates, saying, quote, "They might change the game to alter or cut out the pals that are seen as problematic. They might try to negotiate some kind of settlement or licensing arrangement, or they might be defiant and choose to fight the lawsuit. In that case, the first step would probably be to counter by filing a motion to dismiss the lawsuit, saying that the relevant pals aren't similar enough to the relevant Pokemon. Game development and legal battles have one big thing in common. They are extremely time-consuming and expensive. Palworld has sold 7 million copies and counting, and that's just on Steam, so I'm guessing Pocket Pair probably has at least $100 million more to throw around than it did a week ago, but I'm guessing they'd rather spend that money improving Palworld than paying some suits in court to argue about whether or not one pretend animal looks like another pretend animal. I'm not a lawyer or a game developer, but I'm willing to bet it's cheaper to redesign some pals than it is to square off in court against the full legal might of the most established video game company on the planet. If you want the full breakdown of what legal experts had to say about this whole matter, check out the write-up over on IGN, or if you'd rather just play Palworld and want some tips, check out our Palworld interactive map. We will keep you posted on the world of pals in Palworld as this story develops.
The modder who put Pokemon into Palworld has claimed, "Nintendo has come for me," after a takedown of a tweet. Creator Toasted Shoes took to Twitter to tease a Palworld mod with a clip showing Pokemon's Ash Ketchum in place of the player character, as well as famous Pokemon such as Pikachu replacing Palworld's pals. Palworld is a crafting and survival game dubbed Pokémon with Guns, although it's apparently more like Ark Survival with Pokemon. It features monsters called pals, which bear more than a passing resemblance to Pokemon. Within 24 hours of Toasted Shoes' tweet going live, it was hauled offline by an apparent DMCA takedown from Nintendo. Now, speaking to IGN, Toasted Shoes said he still plans to publish the full video showcasing the mod, but will comply with any further copyright notices from Nintendo. So what, he's gonna publish the full video and then Nintendo will take it down? How else is that going to go? Anyway, debate has raged online about whether Nintendo or the Pokemon Company will take legal action over Palworld. CEO of developer Pocket Pair, Takuro Mizobe, told Automaton that Palworld had cleared legal reviews and insisted there has been no action taken against it by other companies. Perhaps in a bid to avoid any potential issues with Nintendo, mod site Nexus Mods appears to be removing any Pokemon-related mods for Palworld from its site. A Nintendo representative told Bloomberg that the company is aware of Palworld but declined to comment further. The Pokemon Company has yet to comment.
Moving on, Microsoft has laid off 1,900 employees from its video game workforce. While the global economic climate is definitely a factor here, this is also likely a repercussion of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision, Blizzard, and King. In a memo sent out to staff, Xbox boss Phil Spencer explains, quote, "As we move forward in 2024, the leadership of Microsoft Gaming and Activision Blizzard is committed to aligning on a strategy and an execution plan with a sustainable cost structure that will support the whole of our growing business. Together, we've set priorities, identified areas of overlap, and ensured that we're all aligned on the best opportunities for growth. As part of this process, we have made the painful decision to reduce the size of our gaming workforce by approximately 1,900 roles out of the 22,000 people on our team." We've been reporting on layoffs across the games industry pretty much every day. I think we reported on more of them literally while I was writing that story, and it's disheartening at any scale, but it's hard to not be just flat out disgusted seeing this many people left without work, especially when Microsoft scooped up Activision Blizzard for $69 billion, and the company is now valued at over $3 trillion, which is only the second company in history to do that. Anyway, alongside the layoffs are a couple of high-profile departures. Mike Ibarra, former Xbox exec who became president of Blizzard in 2019, and Blizzard's chief design officer and co-founder Alan Adam are also stepping down. On a related note, Blizzard's survival game, codenamed Odyssey, which has been in development since at least the beginning of 2022, has been officially canceled. Hopefully everybody affected by these layoffs and all the other ones can get back on their feet soon.
With the acquisition of Call of Duty creator Activision Blizzard, Microsoft can now be a good publisher across all platforms, including rival consoles. This is according to Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. Speaking to Bloomberg, Nadella said, "We love gaming. In fact, Flight Simulator was created before even Windows. And now with Activision, I think we have a chance of being a good publisher, quite frankly, on Sony and Nintendo and PCs and Xbox. We're excited about that acquisition closing, and I'm glad we've got it through." This comes amid reports Microsoft plans to release some of its exclusives on the Switch and PlayStation 5. Both Tango Gameworks' Hi-Fi Rush and Rare's Sea of Thieves are said to be considered for launch on Nintendo and Sony consoles after a period of exclusivity across Xbox consoles and PC. Microsoft has yet to comment on these reports. It's worth noting Microsoft has committed to releasing Call of Duty on PlayStation consoles as part of a decade-long deal, as well as promised to bring the shooter to Nintendo consoles. Question marks remain over other Activision Blizzard games, however. Fantastic, the developer of The Day Before, which was decidedly not fantastic, has claimed its controversial and catastrophic game suffered from a hate campaign. The dev posted a bizarre statement online. Fantastic, which supposedly closed its doors just a few days after The Day Before launched on December 7th, took to Twitter to address misinformation, it says, published online surrounding the game's development. Answering its own question of why did they say that the release game is not the same as that in the trailers and why was the game closed, Fantastic claimed it implemented everything shown in the trailers before admitting it didn't include some minor features like parkour. It then likened The Day Before to, quote, the experiment where you're asked to count pink objects in a room and then recall the blue ones, and claimed the negative bias instilled by certain bloggers making money on hate affected perceptions of the game. The Day Before, which was promised for years to be an open-world, survival, massively multiplayer online game, emerged as an extraction shooter riddled with issues. Our rare 1 out of 10 review said this wholly disappointing online zombie survival shooter contains essentially nothing of what was originally promised over the years leading up to its disastrous early access release. Fantastic claimed reviews improved over launch weekend as it addressed initial bugs, but said the hate campaign had already inflicted significant damage. In reality, however, The Day Before's numbers dipped day by day, and by December 11th, it had entered Steam's 10 worst reviewed games of all time. By the way, the developer added, after sales closed, many people wrote to us that bloggers had deceived them and they liked the game, and they asked for access. We also heard that petitions were created to continue development, and on the black market, the game's price exceeded $200, and some even began to make their own mods. It's entirely possible this is true, but the way it's phrased here has the same energy of that guy at school who boasted having a supermodel girlfriend who no one ever saw because she allegedly lived in another town, possibly in Canada. Max added that. I didn't even know he added that to the script. Thank you, Max. Very funny guy. Fantastic then asked fans of the game to follow it on social media to know what will happen next, adding further confusion to the status of the allegedly defunct developer. The Day Before was once Steam's most wishlisted game before a strange series of events caused fans to grow more and more suspicious. Fantastic was accused of ripping off other games like The Division, Call of Duty, The Last of Us, Cyberpunk 2077, Grand Theft Auto 5, and more on separate occasions, and a trademark dispute complicated things as well. It's interesting, the day before and Palworld represent the polar opposites of what can happen when a small developer releases a highly anticipated game into the world. One is a disaster, the other is an enormous success. And finally today, Hogwarts Legacy was the best-selling video game in the US in 2023. It's the first time a non-Call of Duty or Rockstar game was the bestseller of the year since 2008's Rock Band. Matt Piscatella, executive director of video games at Circana, formerly NPD, noted Hogwarts Legacy was the best-selling game of the year in the US by dollar sales on PlayStation platforms, second on Xbox platforms, and placed fifth on Nintendo Switch. Impressive since it didn't reach the Switch until midway through November. The Harry Potter game beat Activision's Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 to the top spot. EA's Madden NFL 24 came in third, Sony's Spider-Man 2 fourth, and Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was fifth. Now, Circana's report does not include download sales from some publishers, including Nintendo. This means Tears of the Kingdom's place on the list, for example, could be higher if all sales were included. Interestingly, Bethesda's Starfield failed to crack the top 10 for 2023 sales despite a popular early access period where you could shell out up to $100 to play a week before it launched into Game Pass. And conspicuous in its absence is Dungeons & Dragons role-playing game Baldur's Gate 3, which is surely one of the best-selling games of the year after its phenomenal success since its launch in August. Developer Larian does not share sales data with Circana. Rockstar is looking to the horizon as it begins to, quote, approach the limits of what's possible, end quote, on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. It's starting by removing the Rockstar editor from those versions of Grand Theft Auto Online. The GTA dev announced plans to make a shift toward the future in a news post on its website. It says that while the Rockstar editor will survive on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S, players on last-gen consoles will lose access come February 20th. The editor's removal is said to be part of the necessary steps that Rockstar is taking to ensure GTA Online editions continue to roll out on PS4 and Xbox One. Rockstar says this update will help to ensure the stability of these platforms and keep them updated with GTA Online editions for as long as possible. The Rockstar editor was introduced in 2015 and let players record, edit, and share footage of both GTA 5 Story Mode and GTA Online. Clips and projects created on these platforms will be deleted when the Rockstar editor is removed next month. Those who are interested in saving or exporting their projects can view instructions on the Rockstar support page. Today's update wasn't all bad news. The post also includes promises to deliver more GTA Online love to players this week, including doubled rewards and vehicle discounts through January 24th.
Who would have thought that we'd still see breaking news about a game that released prior to Xbox One's announcement a decade ago? Anyways, make sure to back up all those green versus purple alien videos from 2020. You're probably gonna need them. It's about time for a quick break, but when we come back, we're getting an update on Invincible Season 2, what's in store for Netflix's cheapest plan, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We're about to jump into why Netflix is going to be a little bit more expensive for some customers, probably me. But first, let's check out the latest on Invincible Season 2, Daredevil Born Again, and another PlayStation exclusive headed to the silver screen. Take it away.
After a few months on hiatus, leaving fans on a cliffhanger, Invincible Season 2 returns with its second half kicking off March 14th. But what can fans expect to see in the second half of Season 2? Now, the Invincible Twitter handle posted this teaser video revealing the date, which states, quote, in the second half of Season 2, I'm sure Mark goes back to college, reads his father's books, and has nothing eventful happen to him or his family. Now take a look at the video. Now, the first half of Season 2 left us with a gravely injured Omni-Man, along with a battered Mark after a fight with Viltrumite soldiers on a distant planet. Now, Mark is then tasked with carrying out his father's mission of preparing Earth for Viltrumite infiltration, which, if you've read the comic, this is where the real fun begins, if you consider what takes place from this point forward fun. Now, back on Earth, the big baddie is Angstrom Levy, who will lead our titular hero down some really interesting paths upon his return to Earth. Now, there might even be some surprising crossovers pending if creator Robert Kirkman was able to get the proper sign-offs on certain characters. Now, I won't go into detail, but if you know, you know. Now, it took us a while to get to this particular point in the story, which I hope in the animated series isn't dragged out too much. Although creator Robert Kirkman isn't shy when it comes to prolonging his televised shows for fans to enjoy them for years to come. After all, he created the comic that launched the Walking Dead franchise, which included the flagship AMC series that outlasted the comic itself, and we're still getting a steady stream of spin-offs and video games. And it seems Kirkman has plans for the Invincible universe to expand, possibly running for 8 whole seasons. Now, speaking of Polygon on season 2 and the future of the Prime Video series, he said, quote, "I'm trying not to pin it down to a number because it is somewhat of a moving target. I think in the 7 to 8 range seems like it would be enough. But there could be some things we move through a little faster, some things we expand. If we're fortunate enough to go for a good long time, I think that would be enough to cover the entire comic." Now, 11 seasons wasn't enough to cover The Walking Dead's comic book run, which unexpectedly ended in 2019. But a lot of that was due to how far The Walking Dead AMC series deviated from the source material. Now, dealing in live action on a televised budget comes with its limitations as well, meaning Kirkman and the team likely couldn't pull off some of the bigger set pieces they may have wanted to do that took place in the comics. Now, there was also the added challenge of wrangling the schedules of its live action cast. But since Invincible is an animated series, there's no reason for it to not be a one-to-one of the source material. And getting actors into a VO booth is a lot less of an ask than having them on set in full hair and makeup for weeks on end. Now, if season 1 was an indication enough, don't expect Invincible to stay 100% in line with the comic. Now, continuing in that Polygon interview, he said, quote, "There are some things along the way that didn't get into the comic that I'd like to do. I think it'd be cool to have some episodes here and there that are completely original. So that's part of the plan moving forward." And we know he's no stranger when it comes to staying true to his original creations while still telling an entirely new story. Dead City, Daryl Dixon, and the upcoming The Ones Who Live series are all within the Walking Dead universe with familiar characters from the original comic series, but placed in a separate and original story that's completely different from their comic book counterparts' experiences. Now, with 144 comic issues that spanned 15 whole years, it wouldn't be surprising to see Invincible going up to 7 or 8 seasons. After raising its subscription prices for its premium tier last year, Netflix is now planning on getting rid of its basic plan for subscribers entirely. Now, the company is continuing its password sharing crackdown and doing away with its $11.99 ad-free option. Now, that means the ad-free tier will now be limited to standard and premium. And as we reported with its previous price hikes, if you have the premium subscription plan, you'll be paying $23 a month in the US, with the lowest price ad-free subscription plan being $12 a month. Now, those tiers saw a $2 increase from their previous monthly tiers. Now, Netflix apparently saw a 70% increase in ad-supported subscriptions after every quarter, which honestly could be attributed to the price increases of the higher tiers and consumers not necessarily wanting to pay these exorbitant prices. Now, Netflix's move to an ad-supported subscription model might be inspired by YouTube. Those videos are laden with 2, sometimes 3 ads in a row before you get to the content you've been wanting to watch. If you don't have an ad blocker installed, of course, that is. Wink. Now, anyways, regardless, Netflix obviously sees the value in an ad-supported model, which is likely increasing revenue for the streaming giant. This is Netflix's latest push to increase its revenue after seeing record numbers in subscriptions after cracking down on password sharing, which led to many freeloaders out there biting the bullet and signing up for their own paid accounts. Now, users now have the option to pay an extra $7.99 to share an account with someone outside of their primary household. Now, as for its lower price option, expect to experience ad breaks while enjoying your favorite show or movie. Now, the ad tier on Netflix was introduced about a year ago, and it seems the streaming giant really wants to double down on it. But as it continues to increase prices for its ad-free services and phase out the more affordable price plans, I don't know, some users might opt out of the more expensive offerings and take advantage of the far less expensive advertising tier, or, I don't know, just cancel their subscription entirely. And this could be Netflix's ultimate plan, like to make people pay more. I mean, not to make people cancel their subscriptions, of course. Now, with that said, when you couple these price hikes with inflation happening everywhere else, it will reach a tipping point where consumers decide it's just not worth it anymore. Now, honestly, budgets aside, you can't really blame anyone for wanting to cancel just on principle, considering how often Netflix is raising these prices. Now let us know your thoughts on what you plan on doing as Netflix continues to inflate these subscription tiers. Now, Hollywood is back at it again, this time adapting another video game into a feature-length film. Now, PlayStation Productions is teaming up with filmmaker David F. Sandberg and Gary Dauberman to bring the pixels of the interactive horror game Until Dawn to the big screen. Now, Sandberg will be helming the movie with Dauberman taking a pass at the script. Now, Dauberman's no slouch when it comes to penning horror flicks, as he's worked on the Nun and Annabelle movie franchises. Now, director Sandberg also worked on horror movies back in the past before switching it up and getting caught in the whole superhero movie machine, working on both Shazam movies. Now, for those unfamiliar with the video game, Until Dawn is a choose-your-own-adventure, quick-time events-type horror video game where you take on the role of 8 friends who are trying to survive the perils of Blackwood Mountain until dawn. Hence the name Until Dawn. Yeah. Now, the video game has quite the star-studded cast with the likes of Rami Malek, Jordan Fisher, and many others who all honestly could reprise their roles in the live-action movie. And since the developers also used their likenesses for each characters, it honestly would be kind of hard for the movie to announce a cast that didn't contain any of the original cast from the game. It's literally their faces. Now, also, it'd be a great way to connect the film to the video game and possibly drum up renewed interest in the game, thus possibly leading to more sales or even a remastered version for the PS5. We've seen this done with The Last of Us Parts 1 and 2 receiving remastered versions, so it's not like it's necessarily out of the realm of possibility for PlayStation to follow suit if this movie is in fact a box office hit. But until then, Until Dawn is set to release sometime in the future, and we'll keep you posted when more news breaks. Now, in other news, actor Pablo Schreiber has some more words for fans who want Master Chief to put his helmet back on in the live-action Halo series. Speaking of Games Radar, he said, quote, "People who don't feel the helmet was necessary to come off, they're at such an early conception of what the show could be. In order to examine the discrepancy between these two versions of the character, you can't tell that story without taking the helmet off. If you don't agree with the helmet coming off in the show, you don't like our show. So there's no point discussing it." Damn, I mean, he's telling it like it is. But honestly, I think the point of most showrunners, casts, and crew is to get consumers and fans to like the show. Like, I think there are ways of conveying and examining the discrepancies between John and Chief whilst the helmet remains on. Like Halo 4 kind of did that, you know, with that video game series. I don't know. And actually, I should bring this up. When you examine a show like The Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal very rarely took his helmet off unless it was pertinent to the story. And even when he had the helmet on, I mean, he was very expressive. I don't think the approach here is to say to longtime Halo fans, big whoop, if you don't like it, you're not a fan of the show. I think the approach should be, you know, we've listened to fan criticisms and hope to address it in the second season so that it's more representative of the source material you all have grown to love over the franchise's storied past. Like, that's what Paramount did when fans were complaining about the way Sonic looked in the initial trailer for the Sonic movie. Like, sometimes fan outcry isn't to hate, but to help. Now, those are my thoughts, but curious to know what you guys think. Share your opinions down below. And finally, the actor who played Master Chief in the Halo live-action series thinks it was a big mistake having the character get it on in the series. And you know what I mean when I say get it on. Yeah. Actor Pablo Schreiber said, quote, "The decision to make the connection between Maki and John a romantic connection was a huge mistake. I felt it was a huge mistake at the time, and I argued against it and fought against it. But I am who I am. I don't write the scripts. I only give my opinion. It wasn't listened to." Well, I'm sure, you know, there are a lot of fans out there who write fan fiction about Master Chief, so they could have just been catering to a certain audience. Also, you know, a chief has needs, so let him cook. And I'm not just talking about on the battlefield. You know what I mean, baby, in them bed sheets. But you know what? He should definitely put the helmet back on for added protection. And you know what I mean. Yeah, in the bed sheets. Daredevil Born Again is returning to production after being put on pause due to the writers and actors strikes. Now, after its recent run with the Echo series on Disney+, Marvel is looking to keep that momentum going with its street-level heroes. Daredevil Born Again will see the return of Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio reprising their roles from the Netflix series, as well as Jon Bernthal showing up as the Punisher. Now, back in October, The Hollywood Reporter broke the story that a good deal of Born Again that had already been shot had been scrapped, and the show was getting reworked extensively. Now, we didn't have much of an idea what the original version would have been like, but here's hoping that going back to the drawing board yields a show that does Daredevil's legacy justice. No release date just yet on Born Again, but we'll keep you posted.
I'm Nick Mae, and that was your Weekly Fix. We'll be back next week with more of the biggest gaming and entertainment news. Take care.